The screen of my phone cast a sterile glow in the quiet of my Denver office. As a financial planner at Sterling Bridge Advisors, I spend my days mapping out secure futures for my clients. Yet my own sister, Sarah, was a financial black hole. Just an hour ago, she'd called, voice trembling, begging for rent money. Another $1,000 I couldn't really spare, but for family, you do it. I just hit send when a notification pinged. A friend request from a private Instagram account I didn't recognize. The profile picture was a silhouette against a sunset. Curiosity, my fatal flaw, made me accept. The feed loaded, and the air rushed from my lungs. My broke sister was laughing on a yacht. My hands started to shake. Sarah, my little sister. 10 years younger, she was always the artistic soul, the one too delicate for the harsh realities of life. Our parents, before they passed, had made me promise to look after her. "She's not like you, David," my mother used to say. "She feels things more deeply. She needs a safety net." I became that net. For 2 decades, I'd been catching her. The unexpected car repair, the sudden root canal, the rent that was, somehow, always due tomorrow. Each time, her voice would be a masterpiece of panicked fragility, and like an idiot, I bought it. I'd built my career at Sterling Bridge Advisors on the bedrock of financial integrity, helping Denver families build secure futures. I preached fiscal responsibility, the importance of living within your means. Yet, in my own family, I was funding a charade. The yacht's gleaming white hull on my screen wasn't just a boat, it was a monument to my own foolishness. The crystal clear water wasn't just the ocean, it was the depth of her deception. Every sob story, every desperate plea, was a calculated move in a game I never knew I was playing. My mind reeled back, not just minutes, but years. It landed in a sterile beige hospital room, the air thick with the scent of antiseptic and unspoken goodbyes. My father, frail and withered, gripped my hand. My mother, her own strength fading, whispered the words that had become my life's mission. "David, promise us. Look after Sarah. The world is too harsh for a spirit like hers." I promised. Of course, I promised. What son wouldn't? I was 32 then, just starting to make a name for myself at Sterling Bridge. Sarah was 22, a recent art school graduate with big dreams and, apparently, no concept of a budget. At first, it was small. $100 to cover art supplies, $50 for a utility bill she'd forgotten about. It was easy to justify. She was the struggling artist. I was the stable, successful older brother. It was my duty. The first big one was about 5 years later. She called me, sobbing hysterically. A non-refundable deposit for a shared studio space had been stolen by a scammer. She needed $5,000 to secure a new spot, or she'd lose the opportunity of a lifetime. It was a huge stretch for me then. I was saving for a down payment on my own place here in Denver. But I pictured her dreams turning to dust, and I remembered my promise. I drained my savings account and sent her the money. After that, the floodgates opened. The crises became a monthly rhythm. Her car, a clunker I'd helped her buy, was always breaking down. There was a dental emergency that, for some reason, insurance wouldn't cover. Her landlord was unreasonable and constantly threatening eviction. Each time, I'd sigh, lecture her gently about budgeting, the same advice I gave my clients, and then I'd pay. I told myself it was temporary. Once her art took off, once she found her footing, it would stop. My own life was put on hold. Vacations became staycations. Investment opportunities I'd identified for myself were funneled into the black hole of her emergencies. My friends would occasionally raise an eyebrow. "Are you sure she's telling you everything, Dave?" One asked, after I mentioned paying for her 3rd emergency root canal in 2 years. I defended her fiercely, painting them as cynical and her as fragile. I chose to believe in the delicate artist, the sister who needed my protection. I chose to be a fool, because the alternative, the truth, was too monstrous to consider. But now, staring at a picture of her toasting with champagne on the deck of a multi-million-dollar yacht, the monster was out, and it was wearing my sister's smiling, treacherous face. My breath hitched, a ragged sound in the tomb-like silence of my office. For a moment, I was paralyzed, my thumb hovering over the screen. Then, a cold fire, an emotion I hadn't felt in years, began to burn in my gut. It was the same analytical rage I felt when I discovered a junior advisor at Sterling Bridge skimming from a client's retirement fund. It was the fury of violated trust. My thumb moved, deliberately now, not with frantic panic but with the methodical precision of an auditor. I started scrolling. The yacht was just the beginning. The private feed was a highlight reel of a life I couldn't afford. There she was, 2 months ago, clinking glasses at a rooftop bar in Manhattan, the city lights glittering behind her like a sea of diamonds. I remembered that week vividly. She'd called me in a panic, claiming her power was about to be shut off. I'd sent her $300 without a second thought. Swipe. There she was in Aspen, decked out in designer ski gear, grinning into the camera from a ski lift. The date stamp coincided perfectly with the frantic, tear-filled call about needing $2,000 for an emergency security deposit after her roommate bailed. My office, my sanctuary of financial order, began to feel like a cage. I opened my laptop, pulling up my bank statements. I placed my phone beside it, creating a diptych of deception. On one side, Sarah's curated fantasy. On the other, the stark black and white reality of my sacrifice. The 2 columns told a story that made my stomach clench. February 12th, a photo of her with a new $1,000 designer handbag. Caption, a little retail therapy. February 11th, my bank statement. A transfer of $1,500. Memo, Sarah, car repair. April 5th, a video of her laughing at a Michelin-starred restaurant, a tiny ornate dish in front of her. April 4th, my bank statement. A transfer of $800. Memo, Sarah, dental emergency. It was all there, a meticulous, pathological pattern of fraud. Every sob story, every crisis, was a funding round for her next adventure. The money I'd earmarked for a new roof, the investment I'd passed on, the vacation I'd told myself I couldn't take, it had all gone to finance this lie. She hadn't just taken my money. She'd stolen pieces of my life. She'd weaponized my love for her, my promise to our parents, and used it as her personal line of credit. The scrolling stopped. I'd reached a post from 3 weeks ago. It was a group shot, Sarah in the center, on a sun-drenched beach in what looked like the Caribbean. She was holding up a cocktail, her smile wider and more carefree than I had ever seen it. The caption was what broke me. It wasn't the image, but the 9 words underneath. To my secret benefactor, you make all this possible. Winking face. The winking emoji. That little pixelated gesture was a confession and a mockery all in one. It was a joke shared with her glamorous friends, and I was the punchline. The grief I felt for my parents, the guilt of my promise, the love for my fragile little sister, it all evaporated in that instant. It was replaced by something cold, sharp, and perfectly clear. The shock was gone. The hurt was gone. All that remained was the quiet, unassailable logic of a balance sheet. Her accounts were built on fraud, and it was time for an audit. I, David Chen, the man who built secure futures for a living, was about to orchestrate the most spectacular market correction my sister had ever seen. Her free ride was over, and the crash was going to be magnificent. The winking emoji burned on the screen. For a long moment I just stared at it, the nexus of the entire lie. Then I exhaled, a slow, deliberate breath that seemed to carry all the heat and hurt out of my body, leaving behind a core of glacial calm. I closed the Instagram app. My hands, which had been shaking with rage just minutes before, were now perfectly steady. I moved my mouse with the unhurried precision of a surgeon and opened a new blank spreadsheet. At Sterling Bridge Advisors, I transform chaos into order. I take a client's messy financial life, their debts, their fears, their scattered investments, and I distill it into a clear, actionable plan. This was no different. I labeled 4 columns. Column A, date. Column B, stated emergency. Column C, amount transferred. Column D, verifiable activity. Then, I began to work. Methodically, I scrolled through years of my bank statements, my digital calendar, and old text messages, cross-referencing every single transfer to Sarah. For each line item, I went back to her private feed, took a high-resolution screenshot, and hyperlinked it in the 4th column. The $1,500 for a leaking roof became a weekend at a 5-star spa in Scottsdale. The $800 for a a wisdom tooth extraction became a shopping spree for designer shoes. The spreadsheet grew, line by damning line, not as a testament to my pain, but as an indictment of her fraud. The emotional fog was gone. This was no longer a family drama. It was a forensic accounting case. I named the file Project Nightingale, a nod to her supposed delicate nature. It felt fitting. As I saved the document to a secure, encrypted drive, my phone buzzed on the desk, a text from Sarah. "Hey Dave, just wanted to say thanks again for the rent money. You're literally my savior. Things are so tight right now. Love you." I looked at the message, then at the glowing spreadsheet on my monitor. The old David would have replied with reassurances. The old David would have felt a pang of guilt for her struggles. But the old David was gone, buried under an avalanche of receipts from Michelin-starred restaurants and private yacht charters. I typed my response, my fingers moving calmly over the keys. "You're welcome, Sarah. Always here for you. Let me know if you need anything else." I hit send. The trap was set. For years, I had been her safety net. Now, I would be her quicksand. Every dollar she asked for from this moment forward would be another piece of evidence, another brick in the wall of her own ruin. I leaned back in my chair, a feeling I hadn't experienced in years washing over me. Complete and total control. The audit had begun. The spreadsheet, Project Nightingale, became my new obsession. For the next week, I spent my evenings not with clients' portfolios, but with this digital ledger of betrayal. Each line item was a ghost, a memory of a panicked phone call now paired with the cold, hard evidence of a screenshot. The pattern was undeniable. Sarah's lies weren't just opportunistic. They were systematic. She was running her life like a business, and I was her sole unwitting investor. But her business model had a fatal flaw. It relied on my ignorance. And I was no longer ignorant. My work at Sterling Bridge had taught me that the best way to expose a fragile financial structure is to apply pressure. A little stress test. The monthly $1,000 transfers were her operating costs. To truly break her, I needed to go after her capital. I needed to present an opportunity so large, so irresistible, that her greed would overwhelm her caution. She needed to make a mistake she couldn't come back from. The key was in Boulder, the small, 2-bedroom house our parents had left us. We co-owned it, but in the 10 years since their passing, Sarah had never contributed a dime to the mortgage, the taxes, or the upkeep. I'd handled it all, renting it out to cover the costs, treating it as a sacred trust. To me, it was a repository of memories. To her, I now realized, it was just a dormant asset on a balance sheet she never had to look at. It was time to activate it. I didn't call her. That would be too direct, too suspicious. Instead, I waited for her next move. It came 4 days later, a text. "Hey! Super random Q. The landlord is thinking of selling my building. Freaking out a little. Do you know any good, cheap real estate lawyers in Denver? LOL. The bait. She was testing the waters, seeding the idea of a future, larger crisis. The old David would have panicked on her behalf. The new David saw the opening. I typed back, "That's stressful. I don't know any off the top of my head, but I can ask around at work. Dealing with some real estate headaches myself, actually." I hit send and waited. The three dots appeared and disappeared for a full minute. "Oh no, everything okay with you?" she texted back, the feigned concern practically dripping from the screen. "Just the old house in Boulder. Got a notice from the city. Some issues with the foundation. Looks like it's going to be a nightmare to fix. Anyway, don't worry about it. Let me know what you find out about your building." I put the phone down. The seed was planted. I gave it 2 days to germinate in the fertile soil of her greed. On the third day, as I was finalizing a retirement plan for a client, my phone rang. It was Sarah. I let it ring 3 times before answering, composing my voice to sound weary and stressed. "Hey, Sarah. What's up?" "Hey. Sorry to bother you, I know you're busy. I was worried about what you said. About the house. Is it bad?" "It's not great," I sighed, leaning back in my chair and swiveling to face the window overlooking the Denver skyline. I had my laptop open, a dummy document titled Structural Engineer Report on the screen. The quote came in this morning. "It's significant." "How significant?" Her voice was quiet, probing. I paused for effect. "They're saying 50,000, minimum." I let the number hang in the air between us. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head. $50,000 I'd have to spend, which would directly increase the value of asterisk her half of the asset, for free. "Oh my God, David, I don't know what to say." "I wish I could help, but you know." Her voice trailed off, the practiced, pathetic tone she'd used 100 times before. I know. Don't worry about it. It's my problem, I'll figure it out. I'll probably have to sell off some of my portfolio. It'll set me back a few years, but the house is worth it. It was Mom and Dad's." I twisted the knife of sentimentality, knowing it was a language she understood only in terms of its transactional value. We ended the call, and I started a timer on my phone. I gave her 48 hours. She beat my estimate by a full day. The next afternoon she called me, her voice a symphony of manufactured hysteria. "David, you're not going to believe this. The landlord, he's a monster. He gave us notice. He's selling the building, and we have 60 days to get out. I have nowhere to go. I'm going to be homeless." It was a masterful performance. I had to give her that. The tears, the ragged breaths, the sheer panic. It was Oscar-worthy. Okay, calm down, Sarah," I said, my voice a steady anchor in her fake storm. "Just breathe. We'll figure something out." "There's nothing to figure out," she wailed. "I need to find a new place, and the security deposits alone are thousands of dollars. I have nothing, David. I've lost everything." This was it. The moment I'd been planning for. I let her sob for another 30 seconds before I spoke, my tone grave and serious. "Listen to me, Sarah. The timing it's terrible. All my liquid cash, everything I have, is tied up. I was about to wire it to the contractor for the down payment on the foundation work." I paused. The 50,000. Silence on her end. I knew what she was thinking. She was so close. "But," I continued slowly, "maybe there's a way. It's drastic, but maybe it's the only way." "What?" "Anything, David. I'll do anything. The money I have, it was for the house. Our house. It's the only reason I have it liquid right now. If I give it to you, I'm basically pouring it into a rental, and the house, our parents' house, falls apart. I can't do that." "So what are you saying?" she whispered, her voice tight with anticipation. "I'm saying, if you need that money to secure your future, Then we need to secure mine. The house is the only thing that makes sense. I give you the $50,000. All of it. And in exchange, you sign your half of the house over to me. It cleans everything up. You get a massive head start on a new life, and I get a crumbling house. It's a win-win. I almost choked on the audacity. My win was saving our family home from ruin, a burden she'd never once shared. Her win was a $50,000 cash prize for a lie. It was perfect. Okay, I said, my voice steady. If you're sure, I'll have my lawyer draw up the paperwork. The next 5 days moved with the swift, impersonal efficiency of a corporate merger. I used the same real estate attorney Sterling Bridge keeps on retainer. The documents were drafted, couriered, and explained. Sarah played her part beautifully, the reluctant martyr forced to give up her birthright to survive. She'd text me things like, "This feels so wrong, giving up mom and dad's house," followed minutes later by, "Did the lawyer say how long after signing the wire transfer takes?" The greed was a physical thing, a radiant heat I could feel through the phone. We met at the lawyer's office in a glass-walled conference room overlooking downtown Denver. She was dressed in a drab, oversized sweater, her face a mask of sorrowful resignation. I wore my work suit. I felt nothing but a profound, icy calm. We sat across a polished mahogany table as the lawyer, a man named Peterson, walked us through the quitclaim deed. Sarah sniffled on cue when Peterson mentioned our parents' names. She signed the document with a flourish, her hand trembling just enough to be convincing. She pushed the paper across the table to me. I signed my name, my signature firm and clear. It was done. As Peterson gathered the documents for filing, I pulled out my phone. "I'll initiate the wire transfer now, Sarah," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. I navigated to my bank app, my fingers moving with practiced ease. She watched my thumb, her eyes wide, like a predator tracking its prey. I typed in the amount, $50,000. I added a memo, Boulder Property Buyout. I hit confirm. A small green checkmark appeared on my screen. "It's sent," I said. "Should be in your account within the hour." The relief that washed over her face was so absolute, it was ugly. The mask dropped, and for a split second, I saw the triumphant glee underneath. She thought she had won. 2 days later, I called her. "Hey," I said, "I'm in your neighborhood. Thought I'd drop by and help you start packing. We can grab some boxes." There was a flicker of panic in her voice. "Oh, you don't have to do that, David. I'm just getting organized." "It's no trouble. I'll be there in 5. I didn't wait for a reply. When she opened her apartment door, she looked flustered. The apartment was pristine. Not a single box in sight. "I thought you were getting evicted," I said, walking past her into the living room. "Oh, well, I was just starting to, sort things out," she stammered. I set my briefcase on her coffee table. "Don't bother," I said, my voice dropping to a low, flat tone she'd never heard from me before. "I called your building manager this morning. A lovely woman. She told me the building isn't for sale. In fact, she said you just renewed your lease for another year. Paid 3 months in advance, apparently." The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I clicked open my briefcase and pulled out my laptop. I turned it to face her, the screen glowing with my creation, the spreadsheet titled Project Nightingale. For a financial planner, I was remarkably stupid for a very long time, I began, my voice cold and clinical. "But I'm a quick study," I pointed to the screen. "Column A, date. Column B, your stated emergency. Column C, my money. Column D, your actual vacation, shopping spree, or 5-star dinner. I have screenshots for everything. A $1,000 handbag for the car repair, a trip to Aspen for the security deposit, a little winking emoji for your secret benefactor." Her whole body began to shake. "David, I can explain." "No," I said, snapping the laptop shut. "You can't." But allow me to explain something to you. There's no foundation problem with the house. It's fine. I had it inspected last year. The $50,000 wasn't a rescue package. It wasn't a gift. It was a buyout. You see, I took the total amount you've defrauded me of over the last 5 years, which comes to just over $47,000, and I offered it to you in exchange for your half of an asset you never contributed to. You were so eager to cash out, you signed away your only real safety net for a price you set yourself. You didn't scam me out of $50,000, Sarah. You sold your future to me for it. I stood up and walked to the door, leaving her standing there, a ghost in her own unpacked apartment. The money will run out. And I didn't look back. The click of the apartment door shutting behind me was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. It wasn't the slam of a victory. It was the quiet, definitive closing of a ledger. Walking down the sterile hallway, I felt a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying dissolve from my shoulders. For 2 decades, I had been an emotional and financial shock absorber for a collision that was never coming. Now the machine was unplugged. By the time I reached my car, my phone had begun its frantic dance. The first text was a single word, David. Then came the flood. A cascade of messages, a digital reenactment of her 5 stages of grief. There was denial. This is a joke, right? A sick joke. Followed by desperate bargaining. I'll pay you back, I swear I'll get a second job. Then came the anger, raw and venomous. You monster! How could you do this to your own sister? Mom and Dad would be so ashamed of you. I read each one, not with malice, but with the detached interest of an analyst reviewing a failed projection. She was following the script I knew she would. This wasn't a conversation. It was the death rattle of a parasitic relationship. I didn't reply. I just let them come, each notification a confirmation that I had made the correct and only move. She was right about one thing. My parents would have been horrified, but they had asked me to look after her, to protect her. And for 20 years, I had misunderstood what that meant. Protecting her wasn't about shielding her from consequences. That was just enabling her self-destruction. True protection, the kind that matters, is forcing someone you love to stand on their own 2 feet, even if you have to kick the crutches out from under them first. I hadn't broken my promise. I had finally, truly fulfilled it. Sitting in my car in the quiet afternoon, I opened her contact. Her picture, a smiling, carefree photo from a life I had unknowingly funded, stared back at me. With a steady finger, I scrolled down and pressed, "Block this caller." A small pop-up asked for confirmation. I tapped, "Block contact." The screen returned to my home page. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the sound of my future, unburdened and entirely my own. What would you do if you were in the narrator's shoes and just found your sister's secret vacation pictures?